Well, as 2015 comes to a close, new Fox polls show Donald Trump is still very much on top of this race, well ahead at 39%, as Senator Ted Cruz makes his move into the second place spot there. That's been a trend we've seen over the past couple of weeks. He's at 18 right now. Marco Rubio, the only candidate in double digits after them. He's at 11. And Ben Carson is fourth, followed by a three-way tie for fifth, which includes Jeb Bush, who says Trump, he believes, is not a, quote, serious candidate. Now, a near flip since June, 65% of Republican voters say that they believe Donald Trump is for real, is very much a serious candidate. So they do not agree with Jeb Bush's assessment of this race at this moment. Let's bring in Larry Sabato, the director of the Center for Politics at the University of Virginia. Larry, good morning. Good to have you with us today.
Thank you, Martha.
So, Jeb's been saying this all along. He's like, he's not a serious candidate. He doesn't understand the issues. We shouldn't be paying any attention to him. And yet, the voters have changed their minds. And it's not easy to change voters' minds about something like that. But Donald Trump has accomplished that, Larry.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And maybe Jeb Bush is saying he's not a serious president, or he wouldn't be a serious president. But he's certainly a serious candidate. And you can't argue with that. I think Trump's response to Bush in the last debate was perfectly reasonable. I'm at 40 and you're at 3. So you have to look at it from that perspective in terms of Trump's candidacy.
Let's take a look at another thing here, because they've gotten into this back and forth, and Jeb Bush is sticking with this idea of basically saying that Trump doesn't deserve to be there, although there are plenty of people, and they'll be sending us tweets momentarily, who will tell you that they absolutely believe he does deserve to be there. So here's what Jeb Bush said. It was sort of an interesting moment, a little awkward at times. He said, just one other thing at the end of a appearance that he made in New Hampshire over the weekend. I got to get this off my chest. Donald Trump is a jerk. I feel better now. I gave myself therapy there, he said. Now let's move on to what Donald Trump said in reaction to that. Here he is.
He's an embarrassment to the Bush family, and in fact, he doesn't even want to use the Bush name, which is interesting. Jeb is an embarrassment to himself and to his family.
What do you make about all this back and forth, Larry? Where does it get us, if anywhere?
Well, it gets us nowhere, but I'll tell you, it doesn't help Bush. He's the one at 2 or 3 or 4%, depending on the poll. Even in New Hampshire, his best state, he hasn't cracked double digits in a long time. So I don't think that helps him. What he's trying to do, obviously, is to consolidate the establishment vote, the mainstream Republican vote, so that he'll be the one chosen for them to vote for to stop Trump. Problem is, I think he may be the least likely establishment candidate to be chosen to stop Trump. So he's doing the best he can. Maybe he's hoping that somehow he will help to bring Trump down, even if he, Bush, cannot become the nominee.
So who do you think is the most likely establishment candidate at this point, Larry, to do that job that you described?
You would have to say Marco Rubio, and because he actually straddles lines. He's not a purely establishment candidate. He was elected to the Senate as a Tea Party candidate in 2010. The other more establishment candidates like John Kasich and Chris Christie are not really straddling those lines, though I will say Christie has moved up in New Hampshire, and if he has a chance to win that, which he does, he could become a force. Tough to see where he goes from New Hampshire, but if you win New Hampshire, the whole world changes.
Yeah, I mean, it almost feels, Larry, tell me what you think about this, that when you look at these polls at this point, that they're not that telling. I mean, when we get through Iowa and you get to New Hampshire, then you're going to have game-changer moments in this whole thing, and they may signal, a big arrow pointing right at Donald Trump, or they may not.
Exactly right, Martha. Exactly right. It's so hard to focus people on this. The last time we had an open presidency was 2008, at the end of President Bush's terms, okay? And in 2008, at this moment, Mitt Romney was essentially declared the upcoming winner of the Iowa caucus. Mike Huckabee won going away. On the Democratic side, Hillary Clinton was going to win the Iowa caucus. It was so obvious, except Barack Obama won the Iowa caucus and Hillary Clinton finished third. So people always want to jump too far ahead. They always want to assume that what is true today will be true in 6 weeks, and it rarely is.
It rarely is. Thank you, Professor. Good to see you, Larry Sabato.